This is a presentation by Graham Mitchell on the most important clock in Australia, in my humble opinion. A journey through it. Our story begins here with this diagram, which I got from the historian of St. Philip's Church, located near the southern end of the Sydney Harbour Bridge. The existing clock is electric, but this shows installation instructions of the first church clock, which disappeared in the 1850s. I showed the sketch to Doug Minty, and to my surprise, he had just restored and reinstalled such a clock at the East Maitland courthouse. This was clearly an English-made turret clock with a cast iron posted frame. The urn-shaped finials at the top of each post provide a clue to its heritage. This is the clock after Doug's restoration. Note the rack for the striking and the pinwheel arrangement. The finials look like the ones in the drawing. The Maitland Mercury wrote about the reinstallation of this clock in 1989. Current location of the clock. This is a picture taken at 3 p.m, so the clock is not being wound or looked after. The latter showed the difficult access to the clock. Picture of the courthouse and clock in the late 1800s, when this type of steam tram was in use. The original setting dial records the name John and Miles Brockbank, London, 1794. An article in the AHS December 2015 publication shows the brothers were at the final end of clockmaking, making chronometers and watches and not tower clocks. So who made the clock? Records in the Guildhall Research Library excludes Thwaites and Reed as the manufacturer, and the evidence points to John Moore and Sons of Clerkenwell, turret clock makers. The deadbeat escapement and finials are typical of their designs. Buried in the archives of the New South Wales government are the instructions for installing the clock. The number 82 remains a mystery to me. The sketches of the rack striking match the clock in question. David Collins, the secretary of the colony, recorded the arrival of a town clock in 1795. This fits in with the 1794 date on the setting dial. Gidley's sketch from where the Opera House is now shows the first government house to the right of the sailing ship. On the right-hand side is the Rocks area of Sydney with the clock tower above. This is most likely the second tower, as the first one collapsed in a severe storm in 1799. The first and second towers were of a square construction. This is a nicely detailed sketch by the French ship artist Lazure in 1802, showing the second square clock tower near the windmill in the skyline. This tower collapsed in June 1806 due to another fierce storm. The next month, Governor King laid a foundation stone for a new round tower this time. This tower was completed in May 1807 when the fourth governor, Captain William Bligh, of Mutiny on the Bounty fame, installed 8 small bells brought over by the second governor, Captain John Hunter. St. Philip's Church was consecrated in 1810. Due to the thickness of the tower walls, the bells could not be heard further than a distance of about 300 yards. Another view of the church, which shows 2 clock bells. A rather whimsical view of the clock tower and church in 1817, showing a sleepy guard. This again shows 2 clock dials. This is a peaceful view of Sydney Cove, with Government House on the right, on the left, and a prominent view of the tower and St. Philip's Church on the left. A view from North Sydney, where the church and tower are at top right of the middle ship. The clock didn't have a reputation for reliability. Time complains in his letter to us of the want of time, or rather that the church clock of St. Philip's don't go. The sooner it goes, we think, the better. That is, if it goes altogether. The clock is decidedly wrong, except twice in 24 hours, when of necessity it is right. The superintendent of government clocks, if he does not keep them going, ought certainly to have his pay stopped. This is an 1850 view of Government House, showing the clock tower in the far distance. For a growing congregation, and not to be overshadowed by St. Patrick's Church on the right, a new St. Philip's Church is being built, seen behind the clock tower. It took some years to complete, as the discovery of gold in Bathurst in 1851 sucked away the labour in the town. The old tower and church were demolished with no mention of what happened to the clock. It remained undiscovered until Graham Mitchell and Doug Minty joined the dots to make the claim that the clock in the East Maitland courthouse, 90 minutes drive north of Sydney, is the clock which arrived in 1795. On top is a view today showing the 2 churches and the original location of the clock. This would be from the vantage point of the bullock driver in the lower picture. In my humble opinion, this is the most important clock in Australia's history, and this story will be continued.